Good morning and welcome everybody. My name is Colin Downs. I'm the Access Programme Manager from the Irish Universities Association. We're delighted to welcome so many of you here today for their application information session. And I hope you're going to get a whole lot of useful information from it. We're going to have a whole series of information today for you to make your application as easy as possible. So I'm going to be joined by a couple of names you can see on screen. So they're going to turn on their cameras now. That's Laura Hartley, Jacinta Burke, Sinead Quinn, and Deirdre Madden. They're going to be with us in different guises during the course of the day, helping us out and guiding you through the application process. So after my own quick introduction, I'll be delighted to hand you over to Simon Harris, the Minister for the Higher Education. And that's going to be followed by a brief presentation from Deirdre Madden in University College course in Cork, and then I'll be joined by Sinead Quinn from the CAO, Laura Hartley from SETU in Waterford, and Jacinta Burke from RCSI. During the entire session, we're going to be encouraging you to ask questions. I'll be making a post, as you can see on screen. Please ask your questions by clicking on accesscollege.ie in the link in the chat. I'll be posting that in momentarily. I'd encourage you not to ask the questions just yet, because we're going to be, Deirdre will be delivering a very informative presentation, which will probably answer a significant amount of your questions. So I really advise you to have a pen and paper handy to be able to write down your questions. So don't ask any questions in the chat function down in the bottom of the screen, because you won't get a response there. There's nobody there to really operate it. So in order to fully participate in the session, you're going to watch the set presentations. You need to open a different window on your computer. And if you want to ask a question, you need to open that other window. Not everybody here on the call will be used to the technology. So an alternative to doing that may be to have a piece of paper and a pen and to write down the questions that you can think of during the course of the session. This session is due to close at 11:30, but there will be people working in the background who are from our participating colleges, or their advisors, who will be online until 12:30 to answer your questions online. But there's lots of different ways in which you can put questions to us anyway. So just to note that if the question that you're asking today, pardon me, is not answered fully, please don't worry about that. Their advisors will go away and work on the question and give you an answer to it. So the question that you will ask to us, we'll try and give you a response immediately, but if not, the response that a person types to you will go directly to the email address that you provide to us. And then if we can't get a response to you today, the answer to your question will go to your email address within the next couple of days. So try to be patient, because there are hundreds of you on this call, and there's not hundreds of us answering questions, and it takes a while to type out the answers. Okay. Now, I should mention as well that this session is recorded. Any of you on this call, if you're on this call or you're on this webinar, it means that you've registered with us using an email address, and anybody who's registered on this with an email address will get an email with a recording of a link to the recording of this session Monday or Tuesday next week. So please do be patient. It will be posted on Access College on the website. All right. Now, is there anything else I need to cover in this part of the chat? Okay, so anything any questions that you do ask when you type them into the question box, your privacy is of utmost importance to us. None of your details will be shared. Your name won't appear anywhere in the public domain. Your email address won't appear in the public domain. But if you do ask a question, please do try to keep dates of birth and personal details out of the question itself. Try and keep the question quite general. You can be very specific about the situation, but not in relation to the name of the person, addresses, or date of birth like that. So please do. Privacy is of most important to us. Okay, so I think that's covered the first parts of what I need to say. So I'm going to now ask all panelists to turn off their video and to mute their microphones. And I'm very pleased to hand over to Minister Simon Harris, Minister for Further Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, who's a few words to say to us today. And I'd encourage you at home, who are anyone on this webinar, to turn up their videos to ensure that they can hear this nice and clearly. Okay, thanks to say. Thanks.
Hey there, and I'm delighted to virtually welcome you today to the second online Dare and Hear application information session. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you at this important event. I really also want to thank Colm Downs, the Access Manager at the Irish Universities Association, and Sinead Quinn in the CAO for today's organisation. And most importantly, welcome to you all. Welcome to students, parents, guardians, guidance counsellors, as well as our access and disability officers and many others working in the higher education sector. I wanted to be here today to really convey one message, and I hope it's a clear message. Education's for everyone, and our mission is to ensure that no one is left behind. Many students and their families see college as something that's not for them, or even if they aspire to it, still feel it's beyond their reach, and I'm determined that we work together to change this. This information session provides a really unique opportunity, a chance for you to address the questions you have as you begin to think about your higher education choices and prepare to make an application to Dare or to Hear. I want to assure you that there are many, many pathways available to you that will allow you to further your education and make your dreams and your ambitions a reality. Success takes many forms, and we all grow when we have that sense of belonging. Going from school to higher education can be exciting, but it can also be daunting, and it presents great opportunities and new challenges. So let me now turn to some of the options you may be exploring. Dare and Hear are higher education admission schemes, and they aim to achieve equality of access by providing reduced points places to school leavers. These schemes were developed by a number of universities and colleges to try and mitigate the negative impact that socioeconomic disadvantage or a disability can sometimes have on progression and participation in higher education. And now every college operates the Dare and the Hear scheme. In 2023, almost 1 in 5 students applied to the CAO on the basis of the Dare or the Hear eligibility. The Disability Access Route to Education, or what we call DARE, is a third-level alternative admission scheme for school leavers with a disability and whose disability has had a negative impact on their second-level education. It offers reduced points places to school leavers who, as a result of having a disability, have experienced additional educational challenge in second-level education. The HEAR scheme, the Higher Education Access Route, is a higher education admission scheme for school leavers. It aims to provide access to higher education for students from socioeconomic disadvantaged backgrounds using a range of social and cultural indicators, offering them reduced points and extra college support. At the heart of these schemes is making sure everyone gets a chance, no matter who they are, where they come from, what their parents did or worked at before, what gender they are, or whether they have a disability or not. So I want to wish you every success in the years ahead with the decisions you're making on your future. Remember, there's always help and support out there, and be confident about the options available. And please today, ask every and any question you can think of. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Today is your opportunity to get as much information because your journey is only beginning. And I'm so excited to see where it brings you. So thank you so much to everyone who's worked so hard to organise today. Enjoy the day, and I hope you find it really beneficial. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Minister Harris, for your time this morning. Really appreciate your address and really appreciate your interest and ongoing support for access and disability students and broader access in general. And yes, your message that you put across is absolutely spot on. Please do ask us questions. That's what we're here to do. We're here to answer them. We couldn't be more clear on what we're saying this morning. We want you in our colleges. We want people with disabilities to enter into higher education, succeed, and we're here to support that process from application and right through to post-entry and through your college experience. So I'm going to hand over now to Deirdre Madden from University College Cork, who's going to deliver a presentation on how to make an application to Dare. You'll notice in the chat function that is a link being posted by my colleague Leah O'Sullivan. Thanks, Leah. So please do click on that link, and within that link you'll see a grey bar across the screen that says ask a question. So that's where you ask your questions. Over to you, Deirdre. Thank you.
Thanks, Colm. Just let me know there before you drop out that is that screen being shared?
Yes, very clearly. Thanks, Deirdre.
Magic. That's brilliant. And welcome to everybody to our national Dare and Hear information session. And in this part of our morning, we're going to go through in a general way the Dare application process. So the Dare application scheme is the Disability Access Route to Education. And there are a huge range of colleges participating in the DARE scheme. They're all the list is all available here. You can see them mapped out. I'll spare you reading through the list. This is available in a video on the accesscollege.ie website, so you can pause it and look it up, but I'm sure you're here looking at a specific college or maybe 2 or 3 colleges for yourselves this morning. So this is the list of the broad range of participating colleges. DARE is the Disability Access Route to Education, and it's a 3rd level alternative admissions scheme for school leavers who have a disability or a learning difficulty or a significant ongoing illness that has had a negative impact on their 2nd level education. DARE can offer reduced points places to school leavers who, as a result of having that difficulty, have experienced additional educational challenges coming up to the 2nd level education. And if you're wondering if you're a person that should apply for the DARE scheme, if your disability has had a negative impact on your educational performance in school, and you're concerned that you may not meet the points requirement for your preferred course due to the impact of your disability, and you must be under 23 years of age as of the 1st of January 2024, the 1st of January in the year in which you're applying to the DARE scheme. There are a wide range of disabilities that are eligible for consideration under the DARE scheme. Autism, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, students who are blind or vision impaired, students who are deaf or hard of hearing, students with developmental coordination disorder, dyspraxia, DCD, students with dyslexia or significant literacy difficulties, students with dyscalculia or significant numeracy difficulties, students with a mental health condition, students with neurological conditions, which could be everything from epilepsy to an acquired brain injury, students with a physical disability, those students with a speech and language and communication disorder, and a broad category all on its own is those students with significant ongoing illnesses. So to be considered eligible for the DARE scheme, you have to meet the educational impact criteria, and you have to have evidence of your disability that meets the DARE criteria, and then you could be considered DARE eligible. So you must meet both criteria. You must have evidence of how it is negatively impacted on your education. Excuse me. It's always when you start speaking that the cough comes. And you have to have evidence of your condition that meets the DARE criteria to be considered DARE eligible. So educational impact is measured under six categories, and you have to provide evidence from your school in an educational impact statement for 2 or more of the following 6 categories. Have you received interventions or supports in post-primary school? That could be exam accommodations, resource hours, maybe breaks in the day. Again, the school will have evidence of this and can attest to that. Has it impacted on your attendance or regularly disrupted your school day? Has it affected your school experience and well-being? Has it impacted on your learning or on your exam results? Is there any other educational impact that hasn't been covered in the previous 4? And educational impact indicator number 6 is required for students with dyslexia or significant literacy difficulties, or students applying under the category of dyscalculia, significant numeracy difficulties. Is it severely impacting on your literacy or on your numeracy skills? So the major benefit of DARE is the reduced points. So as an example, if a Leaving Cert points for a course is 366 points, an eligible DARE applicant could be offered a place on lower points, maybe something like 356, but that's just an example. Extremely importantly, an applicant must meet the entry and programme requirements for the course to be considered for a DARE reduced points offer on that course. So the burning question is always how many points? So the amount of points a particular course could be reduced by will be dependent on the overall number of places on the course, the number of reserved DARE places on that course, and then the number of DARE eligible applicants competing for those reserved places and the points that they have acquired in their Leaving Cert. So as a result, the reduction of points for DARE places can vary every year. And I think it's often helpful just to give a very simple example at this point, and I can't do percentages in anything that isn't 100. So we're going to pretend that there's 100 places in the first year course that you're applying for this year. If, say, your college sets aside 5% of those places for their students. If 8 students who are DARE eligible, they've provided their evidence of their disability, they've provided evidence of how it's negatively impacted on their education, so they've been deemed DARE eligible. If 8 applicants who are DARE eligible are applying for those 5 places on that course, then they're competing with one another for the DARE places reserved on that course. And it's back to it being based on points. So it's a fairer competition because you're competing with people who've had those extra challenges on the way up through their education. Now, very, very, very importantly, you don't have to be eligible for DARE to get support in college, because when you register with the college, you will be asked, would you like to register with their disability support? And a needs assessment will be conducted to identify your specific support requirements. And every year we have students who have disabilities, learning difficulties, significant ongoing illnesses that get into college by getting the points that they required, and they don't come in through the DARE scheme, but they register with the Disability Support Service to get a needs assessment to determine the supports appropriate for them to level the playing field with them and their peers. Colleges also offer orientation programs, learning support, assistive technology, library support, exam accommodations, if it's appropriate, educational support workers, and perhaps in certain scenarios, academic tuition. So the important parts are, how do I apply? You apply to the CAO by the 1st of February 2024. And apologies, guys, my mouse is obviously playing games on me this morning. You review your DARE handbook with your parents or your guardians. Make sure you complete Section A of the supplementary information form and apply to DARE by answering yes to question 1, would you like to be considered for the DARE scheme, by the 1st of March 2024. Start gathering your documentation early, well before the deadline of the 15th of February, because it can take some time to gather that information. It can take some time for the school to put together the educational impact statement, and you don't want you or anybody else to be under pressure. Submit your educational impact statement and your evidence of disability to the CAO by the 15th of March 2024. So the supplementary information form needs to be completed by you online before 5 o'clock on the 1st of March 2024. Make certain that you answer yes to question 1, that you would like to apply to the DARE scheme, and fully complete questions 1 to 5. If you're a student who applied to the DARE scheme last year and you were deemed DARE eligible and you didn't take your course last year, you can carry your DARE eligibility forward 12 months, but 12 months only. And if that's your scenario this year, you answer yes to question 1B and you put in your CAO application number from last year, and you're applying then to carry forward your DARE eligibility from last year. Section B is the educational impact statement completed by your school, and you send that to the CAO by the 15th of March 2024. And Section C is your evidence of disability completed by the appropriate professional and sent up to the CAO by the 15th of March. For students who are applying under the category of dyslexia and significant literacy difficulties who do not have a psychological assessment report identifying dyslexia, you should submit Section D and send that to the CAO by the 15th of March also. So your educational impact statement provides information on how your disability, your learning difficulty, or your significant ongoing illness has impacted on your second level education. You need to download the form. You complete the educational impact statement checklist with your school, and your school will complete the rest, following on from your responses to the educational impact statement checklist. Now, this form can be completed either by your guidance counsellor, your learning support teacher, perhaps your year head, In different schools, different people will be assigned the responsibility to do this. With students who are vision impaired or hard of hearing and deaf, the visiting teachers may be involved in completing your educational impact statement, or the principal or the deputy principal. In all cases, the form must be signed and stamped by the school principal or deputy principal. And you return this to the CAO by the 15th of March 2024. Section C, your evidence of disability, provides verification of your disability, and it can give us some information around setting up third level supports as well. You can provide an existing report, or you can get the appropriate professional to complete Section C, your evidence of disability form, by 2024. And the form must be completed, signed and stamped by the appropriate professional. And if they don't have a stamp, it can be accompanied by their business card or their headed paper. For students applying to the DARE scheme under dyslexia or significant literacy difficulties, or dyscalculia, significant numeracy difficulties, you're asked to provide a full psychological assessment of any age, completed by the appropriately qualified psychologist, instead of that Section C evidence of disability form. We're applying under dyslexia, under the category of dyslexia and significant literacy difficulties categories. If you don't have a psychological assessment report identifying dyslexia, you should submit Section D. Your GP may be in a position to complete the Section C evidence of disability form, but only if they have the appropriate information on file and that you submit that original diagnosis from the consultant or specialist. We went through the different categories of disabilities that are eligible for consideration under the DARE scheme, and the age of the reports in 3 of those categories is vitally important. So students applying to the DARE scheme under the categories of attention deficit disorder or attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, students applying under the category of mental health condition, and students applying under the category of significant ongoing illness must provide a report that is less than 3 years old. So that report must be dated after the 1st of February 2021 for those 3 categories. For students applying to the DARE scheme under the category of dyslexia, significant literacy difficulties, or dyscalculia, significant numeracy difficulties, they must provide a full psychological assessment report of any age completed by a psychologist. If you do not have a psychological assessment report identifying dyslexia, you can submit Section D, a school statement in support of their application. And all students applying under the categories of dyslexia must have 2 or more literacy attainment scores at or below the 10th percentile. And applicants applying under the category of dyscalculia or significant numeracy difficulties must have 1 or more numeracy attainment scores at or below the 10th percentile. These attainment scores can come from one or from a combination of the following sources. They can either come from scores from school-based attainment testing, or from scores in attainment tests carried out by their psychologist, and all tests must be carried out after the 1st of February 2022, and all students must submit their educational impact statement completed by their school. All of the information on this is available on accesscollege.ie under the section on providing evidence of your disability. So depending on your condition, that will determine who the appropriate professional is who can provide verification of your condition. You must provide your evidence of disability documentation to the CAO by the 15th of March 2024. I would keep a copy of all of the documents that you post to the CAO. And you'll see at the bottom of the accesscollege.ie website, there's a very helpful navigation page where you can shows you how to navigate through the accesscollege.ie website, and it is broken into the various sections, and there's a section here on providing evidence of your disability. So if you want to go there, it'll tell you who the appropriate professional is, the age of the report, the type of evidence they need, and it's done there for each of the categories of disability eligible. So some helpful tips are: go through the DARE handbook or the DARE website carefully with your parents or your guardians. Make sure you answer yes to question 1 on the supplementary information form before 5 o'clock on the 1st of March. Speak to your teacher early about the educational impact statement. Request all the required supporting documentation early. Send good quality copies of all of the pages of the appropriate documents, and submit all of these documents that are requested by the 15th of March. I would send them registered post or keep proof of postage, and make sure that you submit them in keeping with the deadlines. I have done some of the DARE screening myself, and it is heartbreaking to see somebody who you know meets the criteria make some of simple mistakes. So we're highlighting here some of the common mistakes that can affect your DARE eligibility. So where Section C form, the evidence of disability form, is completed by the GP, but they did not submit the copy of the report by the appropriate professional confirming the diagnosis. People sending in reports that are out of date, reports sent in, but the clear diagnosis is not of the condition is not confirmed by the consultant. An incorrect professional completing Section C form evidence of disability report. For students applying with significant literacy difficulties or significant numeracy difficulties, test details are missing. So for those categories, you have to have the name of the test, the date on which the test was conducted, and the full name of the person who conducted the test. And if any of those are missing, then the student could be deemed DARE ineligible. And forgetting to complete question 1 of the supplementary information form by 5 o'clock on the 1st of March, which is simply saying, yes, I want to be considered for the DARE scheme. So those are some of the common mistakes that can leave a student deemed DARE ineligible, so keep a particular eye out for those. DARE is nothing to do with funding, it's nothing to do with the SUSI grant, but if you're applying to DARE, you should also consider applying to SUSI if you think you may be eligible. Some of the criteria for applying to SUSI would be nationality, residency, your progress in education, whether it's an approved college or an approved course, and your reckonable income. So if you check out the susi.ie website, there's an eligibility reckoner there, and apply early in April 2024. And you can always, please do check out the SUSI website. You can email support@susi.ie. There's a Facebook page, a Twitter feed, and a telephone help desk also. So we said make sure you adhere to the DARE and the HERE timelines. The DARE and HERE closing date is the 1st of March 2024 at 5 o'clock. Send all of your supporting documents to the CAO by the 15th of March. You will be notified after the Leaving Cert as to whether you're DARE eligible or not in late June. There is a short window where you can appeal a decision if you have third-party evidence of circumstances outside your control that impacted on whatever factor it was that deemed you DARE ineligible. The DARE and HERE offers will come out with the CAO offers in August, and hopefully we'll be welcoming you at college orientation in late August, early September. So with your HERE or your DARE application, submit it, check it, and send it. And importantly, a student can apply to both the HERE scheme and the DARE scheme. It is pulling together a lot of documentation. It is a bit of work, but applicants who have applied to the DARE scheme and been deemed DARE eligible, and applied to the HERE scheme and been deemed HERE eligible, if they are eligible under both categories, will be prioritised by colleges when allocating those reduced points places. So it could be well worth doing. Further information is available on the accesscollege.ie website, which is a very clear, well laid out website with lots of really useful information. We have our information day is today, and you can always email the colleges as well at dare@whatever college you're applying to. Now, with your DARE application outcome, you will receive an email notification about your DARE application outcome once the Leaving Cert exams are over in late June. Log into your CAO application to view your DARE application outcome. And some other helpful resources are on cao.ie, susie.ie, and qualifax.ie. It can be helpful to follow on social media the accesscollege.ie, because there's various prompts and reminders coming up when deadlines are coming close. Thanks a million for listening, and I hope that's cleared up some of the basic information, and we're delighted to answer any of your more specific questions. Stopping sharing now.
That's great. Thanks so much for that, there. That was really so informative. Really appreciate you taking the time to deliver that for us. For those asking questions about Deirdre's presentation, yes, it will be recorded and hosted on accesscollege.ie. But anybody again registered on this, who's on this webinar this morning, will be posting that out via your email address Monday or Tuesday next week. Will be hosted up on YouTube via the Access College channel, and you'll be able to access the presentation then. The benefits of those recordings are, of course, you can pause and rewind them and just re-familiarize yourself with the content in there. I should note at this stage that you know, this is not your only opportunity to ask us questions. We're open and available for business regularly or throughout the year, in fact. So you should check in on accesscollege.ie/dare. At the top of the screen, you'll see a list called Participating Colleges. And within that list of participating colleges, you'll find a bunch of email addresses and phone numbers. Now, the phone numbers don't just go to the reception area, the general reception of any one of those colleges. It goes directly to a DARE advisor, somebody who will be able to give you a direct answer to your question at the time. So please do, if you can't get an answer to your question today, or you think of something in a week's time or just before the deadline, do get in touch with the colleges directly. They'll be able to answer your question. Okay, so I'd like to introduce now our three panelists who will answer some of the frequent questions that are coming up during the registration process. So I'm going to invite Jacinta Burke from RCSI, Sinead Quinn from the CAO, and Laura Hartree from SETU in Waterford to turn on their cameras and their microphones. I'll be putting questions to them now. So do put your questions to us through the link in the chat function. My colleague Leah, thank you Leah again, is posting the link out there. So rather than post your question in the chat, please do post them on through the link. Thanks very much. Okay, so thanks a million to Jacinta, Sinead, and Laura for joining us this morning. I'm going to be reading my questions off the screen, so if my eyes are going boggly on left to right or anything like that, just ignore that. I'm just trying to make sure that I have the questions asked exactly as they're being asked. Okay, so the first question I have is going to yourself, Jacinta. So the person, one of our people attending online today has asked, if you've had an assessment done some years ago, do you submit that assessment or do you need to get another one done? The applicant or the potential applicant had an ADHD diagnosis over 3 years ago. So do they need a new diagnosis because that psychologist retired now?
Thanks, Colin. And as Deirdre referred to there are three, if you like, conditions that actually require diagnosis to be less than 3 years old. And that's for ADHD is actually one of those, mental health conditions and significant ongoing illnesses. So for those, the diagnosis that has to be submitted or the section C has to be submitted, has to be dated after February the 1st, 2021. The applicants can also get section C completed. For all other conditions, there's no age limit on the forms. So unfortunately, this applicant will actually have to have a new go back to their psychologist or their psychiatrist and actually get them to complete a letter, or actually to complete the section C form for this one. As I said, for the other kind of conditions, there is no age limit for anything other than mental health, ADHD, or significant ongoing illnesses, except of course, as Deirdre mentioned, for those with dyslexia, significant literacy difficulties, or dyscalculia, where they will have to ask for their scores, their attainment scores. They will have to be dated after 2022, but their original reports of any age will still stand. So I hope that answers that question, Colin.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jacinta. The reason for that is because the expert advice we have from medical professionals and the NGOs in the field, and we do consult and get advice from those relevantly qualified professionals, is that we know that in some cases, such as conditions such as dyslexia, they can they're dynamic, I suppose. They can improve or disprove depending on the conditions in which the person depending on the condition itself or the interventions that come along. Sometimes the interventions can be provided at an early age, and the impact of dyslexia is minimized, which is what we want, because it means that the person can participate in school and marches on towards higher education, or has plenty of options when they leave school, which is great. But in some cases they don't have that, so we will require updated scores just to evidence that the condition is still prevalent and is still affecting the person. Okay, so the next question is to you, Laura, and it's something that comes up every year, and it's something we need to cover every time, which is fine. But it's like, how many points are usually given if you're eligible for DARE? What's the average number of points is the courses 4 points are reduced by?
Okay, so as Deirdre explained in the presentation, the number of points given depends on a number of factors and is usually individual to the university and indeed the programme of choice. So it'll depend on how many reserved places there are for DARE applicants and how many competing DARE applicants there are. So for example, a DARE offer is only triggered if the student does not achieve the points at which the course is offered. So for example, if the course is offered at say 350 points and the student achieves 345, they would be eligible to compete, and that's the important word there, to compete for a DARE offer once they satisfy. And again, this is extremely important, once they satisfy the entry requirements for the course. So it would be really important that the student would engage with the college or university they're hoping to attend to find out what the minimum entry requirements are for the course. Yeah, so thanks, Colin. I hope that answers that.
Lovely, that's great. Thanks a million, Laura. And next question, good morning, hi Sinead, is to you. It's in relation to the personal statement. What does DARE use a personal statement for, and what should the applicant put into it?
So the personal statement is under question 5 of the supplementary information form, and it is used by the disability support services staff in the colleges to help determine what supports a student may require. So in the first instance, applicants' eligibility is determined by the information in the educational impact statement and their evidence of disability documentation. And the personal statement can provide additional information during the assessment process. So I've received a number of queries about completing the personal statement, and in the past week alone. So this, there's no need to get worried about it. It can be kept very simple and short. Use bullet points if necessary, and just outline briefly how your disability or medical condition has impacted on your second level education. So it could take a few minutes to complete this. And when you've finished completing your online DARE application, just ensure that you save it as you're proceeding through it. You know, if you're spending a bit of time to complete your personal statement, your browser could time out and you could lose the information there. So just ensure that you click on the save button and click on submit at the end. You could also type your personal statement into a Word document and copy and paste it into your online application. And even though the deadline is the 1st of March, if you start your application now, you can go back in as many times as you wish to your application anytime before the 1st of March at 5 p.m. to add or update any further information.
Top tip, Sinead. That's I was actually going to say something around that myself. You know, don't wait to start your application. Start the process now, and it's a great idea as well. I'd never thought about that before in terms of the personal statement. Yeah, with putting it into a Word document, just so you can kind of have the wording right. You're comfortable that the wording you're putting in is what you want to say. Read over it and then pop it into your personal statement on the form and save it down. Okay. So I have another question then has come in, and I'm going to be giving this. I'm going to be Jacinta. You're on again. Are you Jacinta? Okay. I'm not just noticing your little skeleton friend in the background there. He looks very happy to be at the application information days along with us. Okay. So Jacinta, can your GP write your medical report? Because she's the person who just prescribed the medication as opposed to the psychotherapist or a psychiatrist.
So the GP cannot write the medical report column for anybody for the purposes of DARE, but what they can do, that if the psychiatrist has actually provided a report, which they would normally do, back to the GP, and the GP has a copy of that report. And now you said there it was that they had, you know, it was for from a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming that's in relation to a mental health condition. So again, we're back to the 3-year rule column. So if that report is in date within the 3 years, what the GP can do is the GP can actually fill in section C on behalf of the applicant, and the GP, presuming that report is within the 3-year time frame, the GP can send a copy of the report once the psychiatrist or the specialist registrar has confirmed the applicant's diagnosis. So once they have stated the diagnosis on the report, the GP can send that report on behalf of the student and complete section C for them. But the GP cannot write the report and send it in to DARE by themselves. So GP can support a student and send the report, but they cannot write the report. So that's it's really kind of a good point to kind of clarify, because often students and applicants kind of think that the GP can actually write the report themselves. The other thing students often kind of think is that the GP needs to send every detail they've ever had about them. And so they only need to send that actual report which states their diagnosis.
Okay, that's a really important distinction, Jacinta. Thanks a million for clarifying on that. Just I noticed a comment came in on the chat there, just in relation to something that Sinead said with the personal statement. It's in relation to if the applicant is writing a personal statement and they have dyslexia, you know, some of the there's going to be it's going to be in their own words and there's spelling errors in there. We're not in the business of correcting spellings or anything like that. We understand implicitly the nature of well, their practitioners do, or their advisors in this room do understand the exact nature of dyslexia. So no, we're not testing for anything like that. Just once the message is put across of, you know, of the how dyslexia has affected them on their school experience, that's fine. Okay. All right, so next question is to yourself, Laura, and it's in relation to a condition that comes in each year. Is fibromyalgia a qualifying condition for DARE? And if so, does it fall within the significant ongoing illness category?
Okay, thanks, Colin. So yes, indeed, fibromyalgia is a qualifying condition for DARE, and it does indeed fall under the category of significant ongoing illness. And we often, in DARE circles and disability services, refer to significant ongoing illness as an SOI. So evidence of disability for the SOI must be dated on or after February the 1st, 2021. So that's really important. And like all SOIs, eligibility is determined by evidence that clearly shows the ongoing and enduring impact of the disability or illness. And the different DARE assessors will assess that impact in order for eligibility to be established. Okay.
Okay, that's great, Laura. Thanks very
Yeah.
much for that. The next question goes to yourself, Sinead. It's again a common question. Of course, most of the questions that come in, we're kind of used to them coming in, all right. So it's in relation to waiting lists. So in the specific case of the question being asked, the person is on a waiting list to be assessed for autism spectrum disorder, but they've been told that there's such a backlog and the applicant may miss the deadline for DARE. Is there anything they can do about that?
Yes, there is. So what I'd recommend in the first instance, the applicant could go ahead and complete the online application before 5 p.m. the 1st of March. And if they have some documentation, they can, such as their education impact statement, can go ahead and submit that. The other option is that if an applicant is on a wait list and they're not able to get confirmation of their diagnosis in time for the DARE application deadline of the 15th of March, there is a CAO independent appeals process. And the CAO independent appeals will review appeals from applicants who've missed an application deadline due to circumstances beyond their control. So this could include that case where the applicant is on a wait list, they're waiting to see a relevant consultant. Or if they're, an applicant has got a late diagnosis, they've received a diagnosis after the 15th of March for their condition because they have been on a wait list to see a specialist. So the information on the CAO Independent Appeals Commission is published at cao.ie/appeal. And what's recommended is that you write a letter to the CAO Independent Appeals Commission. And when you get the documentation, to include that with your appeal. So there's more detailed information on the website about that. So the very latest that an applicant would be able to use that appeals process would be the end of June, the start of July. And the reason for this is that we have to review all the information and have it finalised in time for CAO offers. So for anybody who is on a wait list and they're waiting to see a consultant and they know they may get this appointment sometime after the 15th of March, go to cao.ie/appeal and it lists all further information there. So we'll have the full detailed information published there by early March.
Okay, that's great, Sinead. And I suppose that question, and the answer you provided applies itself very well to other categories of DARE as well. Like we often have, there's backlogs in different kind of state services like CAMS, child and adolescent mental health services, which are inundated, sadly, with potential applicants and other people in the system who are waiting to get an assessment. So that's the answer that Sinead provided, kind of really spans across a number of categories of disability under DARE.
Sorry, Colin, just to add, there's an additional piece of information there. So there may be applicants who completed their application already and they're missing a documentation because they are on that wait list. There is also the review and appeals application process. So if an applicant getting an ineligible outcome towards the end of June, and because they've been missing a document due to circumstances outside of their control, there is a small window there to make an online review and appeals process application and submit documents then by early July. So just keep that in mind. And again, that information is available on cao.ie and on accesscollege.ie under the review and appeals section.
Thanks a million, Sinead. The next question, actually, I'm going to put to both of Jacinta and Laura. Now, The question is what kind of supports exactly are provided during the course of college? Now, it should be noted that a lot of people with disabilities access higher education without coming in through DARE. DARE is what it says in the tin. It's a reduced points entry mechanism, admissions scheme into higher education. But a lot of people enter into higher education on their own points, but it doesn't mean that they don't have a disability anymore. So they still may very well may need supports once they enter into higher education. So I might just come to yourself, Jacinta. Can you talk through the supports that are available in your college there, please?
Yeah, and just firstly, Colin, just to reiterate that point that you said, that, you know, we have a small number of DARE students, but we have a much more significant number of students that then we support with additional supports that have a disability, a significant ongoing illness, or a specific learning difference, that then come to us for supports. And the types of supports we offered are wide and varied. Some people may only require one, and some people might require multiple supports. And I suppose the most common supports that we would offer are probably exam supports, and they include extra time in written exams, and then that includes the different type of venues or supports in venues. The other types of supports then tend to be in relation to academic and learning supports, that they're sort of supports such as study skill support and time management supports, because often people, when they come into college initially, find that transition from secondary school, where they might have often had targeted supports, difficult. So we try to assist with that. We support them with things like note taking. Sometimes they might require assistance with lab assistance. Assistive technology is more becoming more common these days, as well as then as trying to manage independent library skills. We're a healthcare institution, so there's quite a lot of independent learning involved. So they would be the main ones that we would offer. We have a common orientation program, so not many students in our university require individual orientation. They sometimes do that later when they go out on clinical placements. So they would be the main ones that we would offer. There are other ones that are less commonly used, but they're the main ones, Colin.
Okay, thanks a million, Jacinta. That's really interesting. I'll go over to Laura now with the same question. What supports are offered in SETU in
So again, very similar to Jacinta and Jacinta's college. So again, the message is loud and clear that whether or not you applied through DARE or not, whether or not you are deemed DARE eligible or ineligible, do engage with the disability service of any college or university that you are going to, and ask the question, you know, what supports would be available to me. So every student is offered an individual needs assessment. So we would look at their documentation, be it from a health professional or be it from a psychologist. And we'd have a chat with the student, and we'd talk about what supports maybe they had in school, what supports they think they need, and also the different supports that would be available at college. So broadly, these would relate to things like learning support. So learning support is very broad, and that can range from anything from help with academic writing in the very beginning, because that's a skill in itself, learning how to do the referencing and the particular layout of maybe the paper you're writing, to exam techniques, to memory recall strategies, lots of different things like that. Then assistive technology is a huge area now. So whether the student would need help with reading software, so that's converting text to speech, or if they need help with maybe creating the document. So instead of typing or writing, they would use speech to text software. They would need maybe help with proofreading software, lots and lots of different things like that. Or maybe they need some assistive technology in the classroom, like a recording device. things like that. So it's very varied, but we try to apply it to the individual. And then, of course, there are exam accommodations. If a person has a special needs assistant, we might look at what areas they need assistance with and try and replicate that in university. So lots and lots of different things. I probably haven't touched on them all, but also just to say the Disability Office is also a great area for information regarding generic services, academic and health services within the university that we can maybe help them engage with, be it the nursing service within the university, or the counselling service within the university, or clubs and societies about making friends, all of that kind of thing. So absolutely, come and have a chat, and you don't have to wait until September if you're hoping to come to college. You can always send us an email and we can make an appointment to see you or your parents together.
Yeah, and
Okay.
thanks a million, Laura. And I can
Yeah.
speak from experience that Jacinta and Laura are not the only very friendly people that you'll meet in higher education. There's lots of them, and there are many more people like them working in disability services and throughout colleges. In fact, who will really, want to meet and greet you and want to support you in your learning journey through college. So thanks a million for those answers. I have a question for Sinead there. It's in relation to, I think it's really in relation to the offers, I suppose. Look, when will you know when the points are reduced and how many their places are on a course?
Thanks, Colm. Each of the colleges have a quota of places available for applicants who are eligible for DARE, and so they're the reduced points places. So some of that information is published on accesscollege.ie. If you go into the participating college section and click on the links, you'll get links to the relevant information. If you need more specific information, you could contact the admissions office of the college directly. However, every year there is an unknown about what the points will be for the coming year. It's because it's dependent on a number of factors. It depends on how many places are in a course, how many applicants are applying for those courses, and then again, how many reduced points places are available. So when you get your Leaving Cert results later in the year, hopefully in August, you can calculate your point score by picking your best 6 subjects. So there is information on the published points at cao.ie/points, and you can click and you can see what the published points were for courses from the 2023 offers process. How you will know if you get a DARE offer is if you have received maybe a DARE reduced offer, you'll know if your point score is below the published points for that course. So if you already get the points for your course, you're getting what we call above the points offer. And if you're competing for reduced points places, you'll get a reduced points offer or below the points offer. So you could just check the published points and check it against your point score then. So you'll have an idea if you have a reduced points place. In addition, the colleges will contact you to invite you to the orientation if you receive a DARE offer. And if you have any questions during the offers process, you can send an email through the cao.ie contact us facility, and we'll be able to help you with any queries that you have in relation to your offer or acceptances for DARE here or general CAO queries.
That's great, Sinead. Thanks a million for your answer on that. Just a couple of bits from me here. There's a question came in saying, look, the link that's on the chat where we're asking questions, those questions via Access College are going to their advisors who work within the colleges. The information is completely anonymized. Nobody will be able to see the question, your name, or the email address that's being provided. Only one person is able to see that, and that's the person within the college, and they'll provide you an answer to your question. So it's the same, I suppose, as going on the phone or sending an email to one of the colleges in the first instance. The second thing for me is in relation to the orientation. Orientation programs typically happen. Different colleges do them in different ways. Some have integrate them with the mainstream, so like they just have an orientation with everybody else that gets an offer into college. Others have ones that are specific for students with disabilities, because, you know, it works well in that way and they have the experience of doing it in that way. There's a lot of value in doing it either way, but please do engage if or when the orientation happens, because it can be so beneficial, and it's really an opportunity to make friends even before college starts, which will happen. It's one of the great advantages of college, and anybody who's been through college will attest that some of the best friends that they had, that the friendships that they have and possibly still have, were made at that point in their life, and it's equally as important, I think, as the educational process itself. All right. So with that said, I'm going to go to another question. And Jacinta, I'm going to go back to you, because we haven't asked you a question in a few minutes, so I'm going to let you off the hook too easily. We're all working hard this morning. Okay, so the question to you, Jacinta, is there's an applicant whose daughter has an eating disorder and was looking to apply through there. Does that applicant need a psychiatrist report?
So yes, an eating disorder will come under the mental health category column. So a psychiatrist report will be required. And again, the psychiatrist report must be within the 3-year time frame. But just actually to say, while we're talking about this column, the importance of the students when they're completing their DARE forms, to make sure that they realise that they also have to get the school to fill out, and for the students to fill out with the school, the educational impact indicators, because these are really important for all people to complete, because you normally need to meet 2 of those educational impact indicators and on that educational impact statement. And for everything other than dyslexia, their educational impacts number 1 to 5. So mostly it's, the way attendance been impacted, has time in school being, even reducing classes in school being impacted, has the kind of the quality of your life in school being impacted, your exam results being impacted. So for students even to have a think about those as well as being thinking about your psychiatrist report or your section C being completed, as well as, again, for the mental health being it within the 3-year time frame column.
Sorry, thanks a million for that, Jacinta. Back to yourself, Laura. I have a question that's come in from a person in relation to the physical disabilities category. As far as I can make out from the question, the applicant had a broken leg, but, well, it was a bit more complex than a broken leg, and had pins put into it, missed a significant amount of days of school. So I think the applicant's question wants to know, should they apply through the physical disabilities category? What is that for? Or is there another category they should apply through?
Okay, so the physical disability category is really targeted at students who have significant ongoing and enduring physical disabilities that would impact on their daily life. Okay, so when I say chronic and enduring, so it's not something that's acute or fixable. So maybe a fracture is something acute and can be fixed, so it actually might not fall into the category of disability. However, you may have a fracture due to an underlying illness, what I mean, that might be attached to a significant ongoing illness. So typically within the physical disability category, examples would be, you're talking about disabilities around the level of maybe cerebral palsy, spina bifida, if a person had an amputation, or maybe multiple joint replacements due to an underlying condition as well. So those are the sorts of things that normally this category applies to. But just remember that when you're submitting your evidence of disability for physical disability, your consultant must clearly outline the name of the disability, physical disability, and it must be clear for the assessor to identify that the impact is mobility impact is significant and ongoing. So I hope that gives some clarity on that.
Good indeed. Thanks very much for that, Laura.
No problem.
It's a really important distinction, of course, because there are people who will say, well, I got a physical injury, but it's not the same as having a mobility impairment that affects you accessing classrooms and many other facets of life as well. It's an entirely different thing, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going back to yourself, Jacinta, and I related, I guess earlier on to other questions that have come up, you know. And I might even go to yourself as well with this in a second, Laura. The applicant is saying that their son is reluctant about being seen as different, and the applicant wants to know whether, you know, seeking assurances, I suppose, about discretion and confidentiality of the services that are being provided within the colleges.
And yes, Colin, that's a really genuine concern for many students. And we would see that regularly on campus. And it's often the first question that they would ask us, you know, who will know, do they, you know, about it, who are you going to tell? I'm sorry, excuse me, who are you going to tell? And even about students, you know, where will I be doing my exam, or what do I have to, you know, who do I have to disclose to? It really, really is a genuine concern. And so all the disability officers will actually sit down with the student and say, look, disability service is a fully confidential service. First of all, you know, disclose to us. And for most cases, other than where there's, say, a health and safety risk that we would, you know, have to maybe kind of, particularly say if people are going on clinical wards, if somebody maybe has a condition that we would need to know for their safety, they need some treatment. So say if somebody had epilepsy, and maybe we would just need to know if treatment needed to be given to them on the ward. So something like that would just need to be disclosed. But in most cases, we do not disclose their disability to anybody. What we disclose is their reasonable accommodation. So say, for example, Colin, we have our needs assessment, as Laura discussed there earlier, and we put reasonable accommodations in place. And they could be for exams, they could be for lectures, they could be that you might need some support. There's really not any need to tell people what your disability is, and that's, as I said, is in 99% of the cases. And so there's, for extra time, the only people that know is that your student number and what exam accommodations that you need, and that's the administrative staff. They don't know what your disability is or why you're there, and the reasons that people are in, you have supports, are so wide and varied, and it's literally just an accommodation that you get. And the other thing is that it doesn't get, the other concern that students have is, oh, does this go on my degree transcript? Well, you know, when I qualify as a physiotherapist, or, you know, as a doctor or as a pharmacist, will somebody in my new job know that I had X, Y, and Z accommodation? No. There is absolutely no letter that goes to the way that you used, you know, speech to text or text to speech technology, that you got some assistance with your academic writing, and that we used proofreader, that you got some additional, you know, time in allowing you to develop skills. Nothing like that happens. But people are really concerned, and it does take time for them. And some people even take time to kind of actually accept the accommodations because of that concern. And all universities now are really working on making the culture of universities more inclusive. And really, Colin, even this universal design. So if I can give an example, we do clinical exams where people have to come up and practice, and they're done in huge groups. And so, you know, people who had dyslexia before might need to wait extra time. So there was separate, if you like, rounds for them, which really was very stigmatizing, because, oh, there's the, you know, the special group, if you like. So now kind of all the kind of the vignettes are printed in accessible fonts. So whether you have a visual impairment, or, you know, whether you have a reading impairment, everybody can do it in the same time, because the time is given, the print is given, and it's much more accessible to everybody. So even the colleges are making life more inclusive. So even that there's none of these barriers are put in place. But it is something that we are aware of, that we're aware of in students, but we to say to students that it shouldn't be a concern for them, that we will work with them and work with the staff to ensure that only the bare minimum of staff know about them. And two assistive technologies used by everybody now, whether you have a disability or not, because it's so useful, so it's much more commonplace. So really, if they are concerned, come talk to the disability officers and we will help address that concern and work through it with them. And we will only ever share information that a student is comfortable with.
Thanks, Jacinta. Same thing to you, Laura. Is there anything additional there in relation to confidentiality of students or anything?
No, I think I would echo what Jacinta said there, and just to remember that, like, during the needs assessment, we will sit down with the person and we'll go through consent to sharing of information. Okay, so obviously a certain level of consent is required to establish reasonable accommodations. So that might be just consent to share information about reasonable accommodations to the exams office, to lecture or academic teaching staff. Okay, so that could be just information that you require a recording device in class, or that you have extra time for examinations. So within that, there is no mention of a nature of disability. So we normally say to the students, look, we're just here to ensure that your reasonable accommodations are advised to the people who need to know in order that you receive those reasonable accommodations. And after that, if you wish to disclose the nature of your disability, and many students do, and then some students don't, you just contact your lecturers or your course leader, and we can often just help students to do that as well. There may be some instance, as Jacinta referred to, where there may be something that trumps, the consent to disclose the nature of disability, and that's really if there's just a health and safety concern. But 99.9% of the time, the nature of the disability is not disclosed unless the student wishes to do so. It's just the reasonable accommodations.
Okay, thanks a million, Laura
Okay.
and Jacinta. And I'd echo what you're saying, just from experience. I've worked in access services previously. One thing I would say though is that a post-primary school person's experience of their disability within a classroom setting, and possibly within the school, might be entirely different to what it's like in university. I was about to say, like, no one cares, but like that's not entirely accurate. We say we care very much. But I think because there's so many people in the college, and people are just that much older. When you enter into a university or college, you're like 18 years of age, but like most people are older than that within the college who are studying. So nobody really pays too much attention to it. Like, and when you go into a classroom, everybody's on a laptop, so there's no real distinction between you. So, and even in terms of feeling different, then like the proportion of students with disabilities in colleges now is enormous. Like it's 1 in 10, maybe not, even more in some places as well. So there's no real, in a way, when you start calculating like that with international students and access students, students with disabilities, mature students from all different kind of backgrounds, like it's almost like everybody's different. So that's fine, and more of that, please. I had just a quick comment as well regarding prefixes for email addresses. So the prefixes, we have a standard email address. It's like, it could be dare@ucc.ie, dare@ucd.ie, dare@rcsi.ie. You just find the name of the college and add a dare at in front of it, and you can get straight to a dare person. Okay. Okay. I'm just looking at the time here. We're 18 minutes past. We've got a few more questions to get through, and let's just try and squeeze as many in as possible. I'm going to do a couple of quick fires. A question came in regarding accommodation, and not like accommodations of disability, but more accommodation as a place to live. We typically don't get too involved in this. Some colleges have a limited amount of accommodation for students with disabilities. Others don't have any physical accommodation at all provided. But it is limited, and it depends on the disability. You'll understand that if somebody has full-time PA requirements and in a wheelchair, they might need ground floor accommodation on the campus, or they're a fully blind student or profoundly visually impaired, their need might be that they might need accommodation for that. In that case, you might talk directly to the disability service within the college about and flag those kind of things early. Another question that's come in then is in relation. I'm just going to flag that. I just want to tick that box and make sure they've answered the question. Another one then is that an applicant has ADHD, that's attention deficit ADHD, I'm sorry, an ASD, autism spectrum disorder. So they have both of those conditions. How do you determine which one is the primary disability to note on the application? Well, I suppose a lot of the applicants will have more than one disability. There's no specific advantage of having, if you qualify with a disability, you qualify with a disability, you're eligible for the scheme. There's no particular, if you have 5 of them, it doesn't make you more eligible than another person. What it does do, though, is it flags at an early stage where a person accepts an offer. Say, for example, in SETU in Waterford, Laura there, once you as an applicant have accepted a place in her college, she will be able to access their documents to be able to say, okay, well, this person has these conditions affecting them, and therefore, we can start working on putting accommodations into place, so we know that these conditions affect you in relation to the particular course that you're going to. And it helps them kind of build a picture of what kind of supports you might need in order to kind of I suppose get you off the ground from the get-go when you start into higher education. So the advice would be do provide take all the fill in the details about all of any of the disabilities that are affecting you, where you have diagnosis, and provide the paperwork to us. Which one is the primary disability? Suppose it's up to you, I suppose, to determine which one of those things it is. You might be able to tell us that one disability has affected somebody more than another disability. So it's entirely up to you to be able to tell us that answer. I have another question which I'm going to take quick fire as well. I just got handed a cup of tea here. I'm a very lucky man today. So the question is in relation to Hodgkin's lymphoma. If you've had treatment for that in the last few months, do you qualify for there? It's an eligible condition, as in it's cancerous. So anybody who has cancer or has had cancer and is in remission from it can apply. It's not a disability per se, but can apply under significant ongoing illness, and there's details about that on the website. Okay. So do I have another couple of questions? I do. I'm going to go back to Jacinta, and the question is in relation to actually I kind of asked you earlier on about this. It's in relation to a diagnosis that's over 3 years old. Do you want to just give a brief answer to that? It's ADHD diagnosis, it's over 3 years old. Do they need a fresh report?
So again, for an ADHD diagnosis over 3 years old, yeah, all reports have to be within that 3-year window. So February 21. So if it's over February 21, you need a new report or complete section C on the form.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Jacinta. And then to Laura. An applicant said that their son has mild dyslexia. Would he qualify for DARE?
Okay, so in relation to dyslexia or significant literacy difficulties, all students must fulfill the qualifying criteria for dyslexia that DARE have. Okay, so evidence of dyslexia or significant literacy difficulties can be provided by way of an educational psychology report. This can be of any age, clearly outlining a diagnosis of dyslexia. Or if you don't have an educational psychology report, and I think Deirdre explained this earlier, you can have your school complete section D, that clearly outlining that the student has persistent literacy difficulties and has been receiving school-based intervention. So whether or not you provide the educational psychology report or you have the section D completed by your school, you do also need to submit 2 literacy scores or literacy attainment scores that are at or below the 10th percentile rank that are assessed on or after February the 1st, 2022. Okay, so no matter whether it's mild, moderate or severe dyslexia, you must fulfill the qualifying criteria for dyslexia or significant literacy difficulties, and you must therefore provide the evidence to allow the DARE assessor establish whether or not you fulfill that criteria. And that evidence that the DARE assessor requires is by way of either a full educational psychology report clearly outlining a diagnosis of dyslexia, or Section D the school form that can be completed, outlining intervention regarding school-based interventions regarding dyslexia. And in addition to either or of those, you still need to provide 2 literacy scores that are at or below the 10th percentile. They can be either school-based or provided by an education psychologist.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Laura. Very useful. I'm rushing through the questions now because I'm just looking at the time coming. As we've 6 minutes to go, but I'm just going to try and squeeze in as many questions as we can, because it's always useful to have that information. I suppose before I do ask any additional questions might be there, I'm going to go to each of you in relation to maybe any kind of top tips that you might have in relation for any DARE applicants, just from your own experience of seeing applications being made. So we'll go to yourself first, Jacinta.
I think one of the things that we have kind of seen is in relation to the educational impact statement, where students actually just hand it to somebody and they actually don't talk to the person that's filling it out, so they have no input themselves. Because often as teachers, guidance counselors or the people in school don't actually realize the impact that some of the things, we as teachers can kind of calculate dates, and that's fair enough, but they often don't realize that the personal impact that a disability can actually have on the student in relation to their school experience and in relation to the effect that it's having on their studying. So it's often for the applicant's good to actually do have the conversation with the teachers to explain the overall effect but prior to the teachers filling out their educational impact statement, to actually give them that the actual kind of the story to allow the school to make a complete to have the complete picture before they're filling out that educational impact statement. And often if one teacher is filling it out, they're often not aware that somebody might be getting other additional supports in school, or they might have had them in first year and they might have only taught them in sixth year, especially if there's been change of support teachers in a school. So make sure that they talk and not just hand out the form to a teacher. That would be my tip. And the other tip is to make sure you start it early. Documentation takes time. Don't fill in a form in 2 days. Don't expect to fill in a form in 2 days.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much, Jacinta. Really useful tips there. And Laura?
Yeah, just in relation to if you're providing evidence of disability and having your Section C completed by your consultant, just make sure that they sign it and they stamp it so that it has the hospital stamp. The other thing is, if you're using the GP verification system whereby your GP completes Section C and the GP is attaching the consultant's report, that consultant's report is within the date requirement for the condition. Yeah, so they would be the top tips from myself.
Okay, that's great, Laura. Thanks very much. There's a couple of questions coming in specifically in relation to very specific conditions. My advice to you would be to check the evidence of disability section of accesscollege.ie/DARE, and you will find the particular condition that you're talking about listed there, and it will give you information on who should sign off, when they should sign off, what the age of the report should be, what any parameters should be, what the criteria are, and any additional information you need to find out. Okay, I'll just come over to yourself now, Sinead. Do you have any particular tips you'd like to pass on to people attending today?
Thanks, Colm. So I suppose keep to the application deadlines. That's really important. If you wish to apply for DARE, you must apply to CAO before 5 p.m. on the 1st of February. And then you have until 5 p.m. on the 1st of March to complete your online DARE application. The 15th of March again is the deadline for for supporting documents. So my top tips are keep to the application deadlines, read the instructions in the DARE application handbook 2024. It's available at cao.ie /DARE and on the Access College. That takes you through the whole application process step by step. And if you follow the instructions in that, it will take you through the process. There are also email reminders that will be issued to you from CAO. It's really important to read those because they're relevant to your application, not just DARE here, but also to the main CAO application process. So they're important reminders to help you complete your application on time and to get everything completed as required.
Great, thanks, Sinead. I'm gonna chime in with a top tip just because I can. So my top tip is each year we see a lot of applications turned down on the basis, sadly turned down on the basis that he said, oh, my school told me they'd send that in, or my doctor told me they'd send that in. It's the applicant's responsibility, your responsibility, to ensure that the information is posted out. So get the physical documentation in your own hand from the school, from your doctor, or qualified psychologist, or relatively qualified medical professional, and put your CAO number on each page and ensure it's posted. If you want CAO doesn't enter into dialogue about whether we've received anything or not, or whether anything has been received or not. If you want to confirm that the postage has been received, enclose a stamped addressed envelope, and they can post something back to you, and it will show that the documents have been sent down there, or whatever was posted was sent down there. Or you can get a proof of postage, I guess, for a certificate of postage from your local post office. Documents are not scanned; they're posted down to CAO on Eglinton Street in Galway. I think that's all we have time for. I'm sorry, it's come up on past on a Saturday. We have another DARE session happening in our HERE session happening in a few minutes, the higher education access route for students with socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds. So if you are participating on that, I'll see you at 1 p.m. Just so you know, any of the questions that you're now asking in the timeline, again, the link that's been posted out to you repeatedly throughout the session, people will be on there answering your questions until 12:30 today. So please do post those questions, keep them coming. So the only thing leaves me to do now is to thank Laura, Jacinta, and Sinead for their time and all of that knowledge and experience and advice. Thanks so much for your time for that. I want to thank Deirdre for our presentation earlier on, Minister Harris for his welcome message to our live captioners and PCR. Hi, Judith, you're not unseen there. We see you working away in the background. Thanks so much for the captions. My colleagues in the CAO who make this whole operation tick along and work every year, thanks to them. Our DARE advisors who are working really hard in the background, answering your questions there online. And finally, thanks to my colleagues in IUA who've helped to bring this seminar online and make it work. Apologies for my mistake with the sound earlier on. And finally, thanks to all of you who attend and your guidance counsellors who do sterling work and supporting you through the process every year. You're also not unseen, we're fully aware of what you're doing. And thank you for it. You can still post your captions to the live chat, as I've said. So get in touch with one of our participating colleges after this event if you want as well, to accesscollege.ie/DARE. After this session, we're going to be sending the recordings out to you, so you won't be on your own. So for now, thanks a million for attending, and we'll see you again. All the best. Bye-bye.